Beyond this point lies Lake Hylia. It is full of deep, pure water. The Zoras, who live all the way upstream, guard the sunken temple at the lake's bottom as well as Zora's fountain. It's arguable that of all the races found in Ocarina of Time, none of them serve as important a purpose to the entire kingdom of Hyrule as the Zoras of Zora's domain. These humanoid, aquatic life forms spend most of their lives in or around water and serve as staunch allies to the royal family of Hyrule. The Zoras are one of Hyrule's most prominent races throughout its long history, and have appeared in some form or another in the majority of Zelda games. But in this video, we are only focusing on the Zoras as they appear in the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. At the time of this recording, we actually don't have any idea where the Zoras came from. According to any official Zelda timeline, Ocarina of Time is actually the first place where the Zoras appear. They are completely absent from Skyward Sword, the Minish Cap, and Four Swords. They are in Four Swords Adventures, but that comes later. And yet, after the timeline split in Ocarina of Time and theorized timeline convergence of the Wilds era, the Zoras are practically ever-present. So where exactly did they come from? Originally, a type of the Zoras were planned to appear in The Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. We even have concept art for how the Zora-like race were going to look, which seemed to have more elements from the ocean than just fish, sharks, or dolphins that we usually see. See, like this one has like a little conch on its head, this one's kind of got a jellyfish thing going on, and there's a squid thing going on here. What happened, however, was revealed in Hyrule Historia on page 48. We originally planned to have a race that closely resembled the Zora, but we were told to design a more primitive race, and the idea was rejected. For whatever reason, the Zoras were excluded as one of the founding races of Hyrule. See, instead of the Zoras, we do have another aquatic race present in this Hyrule in the form of the Parella. Notably, the Parella are sapient, extremely strong swimmers, and even fought alongside Hylia in the war against Demise. They live in the largest body of water on the surface, Lake Floria. Like how Eldin Volcano would one day likely become known as Death Mountain, I believe that this specific Lake Floria is not the same as the one that we find in the Era of the Wilds, but is more likely to be one and the same with Lake Hylia. In fact, it seems possible that Lake Hylia and Lake Floria were once part of the same enormous body of water encompassing most of the Faron region of Hyrule, and their source of water can be traced through the rivers directly from Zora's domain. As such, it may stand to reason to believe that there is a link between the Parella and the Zoras, so it's history theory time. At the end of Skyward Sword, the Hyruleans began to settle all across the surface. Clearly, the Parella would not evolve to a humanoid species as a natural progression. So just hear me out. Some of the Hyruleans from Skyloft likely would have gravitated to the abundant Faron woods, rich with water, food, and other resources. And who would they have settled close by to in the Faron woods? Just a few hundred yards away was the great source of water Lake Floria, and in it, another sapient species with whom they could speak to, trade with, or, well, reproduce with. This would help to explain why the Parella would disappear completely from history after the settlement of the Hyruleans on the surface, and it would also explain why the Zoras suddenly appear in numbers great enough to establish their own kingdom in the centuries following. As actual kin to the Hyruleans on the surface, it would explain why the Zoras, as skillful and self-sustaining a race as they are, would pledge themselves to the service of the Hyrulean king. Eventually, they would leave what was known as Lake Floria for a place up the river and settled Zora's domain beneath Zora's fountain, of which is said, all of the water in Hyrule flows from Zora's fountain. That water flows through Zora's river, which eventually reaches Lake Hylia to the south. Whether moving up the river to Zora's domain was of their own volition or by order of the royal family is up for speculation, but another oddity would be the appearance of the great spirit Jabu Jabu, a freshwater whale who lives within the confines of Zora's fountain. It is entirely possible that the great whale spirit is a descendant of another ancient whale spirit, the great Levias. Both of them are seen as protectors, and both subsist on food brought to them from offerings, and it's possible the tradition continued on for generations. And obviously, they're both whales. Suffice to say, Zora's fountain is the source of all water in Hyrule. Zora's domain was settled below it, and Jabu Jabu lives within it. Now on to the real history of the Zora race that we definitively know. Just ahead lies Zora's domain. The Zoras serve Hyrule's royal family by protecting this water source. At some point, it was decided that the Zoras would protect the source of Hyrule's fresh water. This alone makes their job arguably the most important out of any race in Hyrule. Not only did the royal family entrust the king of the Zoras with the spiritual stone of water, but they were also tasked with the monumental responsibility of ensuring that almost every other race can survive in the first place. No fresh water, no life. Due to their sacred duty of guarding Hyrule's water supply and taking care of their guardian spirit, at some point the Zoras closed off their domain from all visitors besides those who came from or at the behest of the Hylian royal family. Only the royal family's song, Zelda's Lullaby, could open the way into Zora's domain. Otherwise, the way into the domain is completely inaccessible unless a traveler has been gifted a Zora's silver scale, or possibly even another Zora treasure, the iron boots. Or maybe they're a very good fisher and got the golden scale from the fishing hole. Even with the safeguard of the only royal family and its messengers being allowed in the domain, the Zora King himself also guards the way to the invaluable Zora's Fountain, only allowing those with his explicit permission to enter. At some point, the Zoras also either created or obtained possession of the iron boots and hid them away in the ice cavern behind the fountain. It's fairly easy to understand why the iron boots could be a treasure to them, considering it allows any Hylian with the combination of iron boots and Zora tunic to mimic the abilities of the Zoras and gain access to their holy shrine, the Water Temple. Another tool that may have held great value to the Zoras would be the long shot. It's a bit of a theory, as the only hint that we have that the Zoras valued the long shot would be that it was essential in navigating the Water Temple, even for strong swimmers such as they. As the Sheikah were the most likely inventors of the hook shot, they were likely responsible for the creation of the long shot as well. It was probably gifted to the Zoras for use in their religious practices or underwater defenses, probably both. Perhaps the Zoras also developed the boomerang. As we know in Majora's Mask, a Zora hero can shoot out his fins like bladed boomerangs, and the boomerang itself is found in the depths of their guardian spirit. Which brings us to the culture and lives of the Zoras themselves. Even with heavy restrictions on who was allowed to enter the domain and the fountain, the Zoras greeted their guests with nothing but hospitality. One Zora will even insist that those who haven't seen Lord Jabu Jabu visit the fountain just to see him. Everybody who comes around here should see Lord Jabu Jabu at least once. Zora's fountain is just beyond King Zora's throne. That is where Lord Jabu Jabu swims. The Zoras, while having their own royal family complete with a king, queen, and princess, are still subjects of the King of Hyrule. The Zoras fulfilled their task of guarding the fountain and Jabu Jabu for generations. Eventually, it became tradition for members of the Zora royal family to feed their guardian deity, Jabu Jabu, as Princess Ruto prepares meals for him every day, morning and night. In addition to their duties of guarding the fountain and maintaining the livelihood of Jabu Jabu, the Zora royal family also adopted a new tradition with the Zora Sapphire, also known as the Spiritual Stone of Water. Zora royalty would only ever gift the sapphire to those they would choose to become their spouse, and thus possession of the sapphire would always remain within the Zora royal family, with the added heirloom status of the sapphire ensuring it would always be protected for both real and metaphorical reasons. The Zoras are also amphibious, capable of living both underwater and on land. They can spend a significant amount of time on land without any kind of detrimental effects, as seen in the final cutscene of the game and confirmed in the 64 Dream interview. The Kokiri tribe is outside the forest at the ending, and the Zora too? The Zoras do not need to be immersed in water all the time, according to Kawagoe, the cinema scene director of Ocarina of Time. The Zoras also subsist almost entirely on fish, which they will generally catch themselves due to a steep cost to buy them from their local store, at a staggering 200 rupees for a single fish. Seems reasonable to assume that the Zoras are mostly self-sustaining individuals, though they do like to play diving games with high monetary rewards. We don't entirely know how old the Zoras lived during this era, like we know in the era of the Hero of the Wilds that the Zora lived hundreds of years. However, we do know that they age at a similar rate to Hylians, thanks to seeing Princess Ruto as a child at the same time as Link and growing into a young woman in the 7 years he was gone. Another part of their culture that has developed over the years is the belief that offering a fish to Lord Jabu Jabu will make one happy. Whether or not this is associated with good luck or just the good feeling of feeding the whale spirit is up for debate. There's also the eyeball frogs. They are in both parts a delicious treat or an ingredient for the most potent eye drops in the world, enough that even a mountain-sized Goron will feel the effects from a tiny bottle. And it's from another 64 Dream interview question that we learn a bit more about the Zoras and the rest of the races of Hyrule. The question was, I feel sorry for the frog that gets used for the eye drops. And Koizumi, the 3D systems director, answered, that's pretty sad, isn't it? However, the frog has probably been used for centuries, so King Zora and Dr. Lake probably didn't feel very sorry for it. I feel sorry for them too, but there are so many creatures in our lives that are useful. In each region of Hyrule, a memorial service is held once a year for the animals that have been of service to humans in this way. Humans obviously referring to any humanoid species like the Zoras, Gorons, Kokiri, and so forth. So, every year, every race in Hyrule holds a memorial service for the animals that have been of service to humans, including the Zoras with their eyeball frogs. I just think that's pretty neat. And a final strange thing we learn about the Zora race from the 64 Dream article is about Rudo's second pair of eyes. Apparently, like Sidon in Breath of the Wild, Rudo was designed to look like a hammerhead shark. Apparently, those extra eyes are a functioning set of eyes until, as the Zora matures, the holes will close up and turn inward. Kinda weird. Imagine having like 4 sets of eyes and you just lose 2 of them. Yeah. Now on to the definitive history of the Zoras as it takes place in the era of the Hero of Time. As mentioned previously, the Zoras had been guarding the Zora's Fountain and caring for Lord Jabu Jabu for generations. The royal family of the Zoras was allied with the royal family of Hyrule. In the 64 Dream Q&A, we learn that Queen Zora, Rudo's mother, passed away. However, given that King Zora has a certain look, I think that Queen Zora was a beautiful creature. That's from Osawa, the script director. Apparently, Rudo got her looks from her mother. Before passing away, Queen Zora gave her daughter the Zora Sapphire. Of this, Rudo herself said, "My mother gave it to me and said I should give it only to the man who will be my husband." Rudo would then take on the responsibility of preparing and feeding Lord Jabu Jabu his meals, morning and night. The Zora princess developed a close bond with the whale spirit, and unbeknownst to her father the king, would often venture into his depths to explore. The Zoras in general lived in an isolated peace. Only affiliates of the royal family or Hyruleans who possessed the Zora scale could ever visit their domain. Sometimes the Zoras could be found swimming around Lake Hylia as well. The Gerudo king Ganondorf would eventually discover that the Zoras possessed the spiritual stone of water and forced his way into the domain to claim it. The Zoras, like the Gorons and Deku Tree before them, refused Ganondorf's demands. I also imagine Rudo wasn't too keen on the idea of being engaged to the King of Thieves. After failing to obtain the Zora Sapphire, Ganondorf, in secret, cursed Lord Jabu Jabu with an invasive parasite that filled the inside of the whale spirit with dangerous creatures like the beeties and bodies, stingers, and even octoroks. This caused the spirit great pain and distress, causing it to act funny. Princess Rudo herself was involuntarily swallowed by Jabu Jabu along with the Zora Sapphire, and she refused to leave until she could find it. Knowing that she would need help, Rudo wrote a note and stuck it in a bottle, hoping it would find its way to someone who could help. On it, she wrote, "Help me. I'm waiting for you inside Lord Jabu Jabu's belly. Rudo. P.S. Don't tell my father." As usual, Link comes to town, looking for the spiritual stone that Zelda tasked him to find. What he'll find is that the Zoras are mostly at ease except for their missing princess. King Zora sits on his throne full of worry, and even sent out Zora scouts to locate her, searching as far as Lake Hylia with no success. After playing a few games and earning the silver scale, Link himself goes to Lake Hylia and finds Rudo's message in a bottle. He shows the message to the king, and the king lets him through to the Zora's Fountain. Link, with a new bottle and fish in hand, decides to take the advice of the Zoras and feed Jabu Jabu. He's swallowed whole, and in the depths of the whale spirit he finds Princess Ruto, obtains the boomerang, and together they find the Zora Sapphire. When Rudo gets even more lost within the depths, Link traverses the rest of the dungeon alone until he defeats the parasite Baronade and rescues his first princess. Rudo, so pleased with Link for rescuing her and saving the guardian spirit, presents him with her engagement stone, the Zora's Sapphire. Link doesn't know what that means, but he's happy all the same. Like the Gorons before them, the peace for the Zoras is short-lived. Link is sealed away by the Master Sword, Ganondorf obtains the Triforce of Power, and brings further ruin to the Zora people. He encases the entire domain in ice, which halts Hyrule's water flow and brings even more devastation to the people of Hyrule. Eventually, Sheik arrives and is able to save the Zora princess alone from the ice. Knowing that the ice is actually being caused by a monster within the water temple, Rudo goes ahead of Sheik to stop it. Link once again arrives to save the day. He enters the domain, goes to the ice cavern in Zora's fountain and finds the iron boots. With the unique flames he found in the cavern, he thaws out King Zora and opens the way to the Zora shop. He is gifted the Zora's tunic by King Zora, which he can now use to enter the Water Temple. After that, he meets Ruto in the Water Temple. Link finds the long shot and uses it to defeat the beast of the temple, Morpha. This then awakens Link's fiancée Ruto as the Sage of Water. Once the monster is defeated, Lake Hylia fills up once again, and eventually Zora's domain will thaw. We know that by the end of the game, Zora's domain is indeed thawed out because the Zoras themselves are seen partying with the other races at Lon Lon Ranch. Hopefully, in the Ocarina of Time Remake, we get to see a thawed Zora's domain in the adult timeline with our own eyes. And with that, that's essentially everything we know about the Zoras as they appear in The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe if you'd like to see more of these type of videos. Next on the docket is the Gerudo.